Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome again to the Israel Brief, brought to you by Lay of the Land. I'm Marlene Marks, bringing you those top stories that you tune in every day around this time for. And you can view us on Facebook on our page at Lottel's site. If you haven't joined our community, please do so by liking or following us. Or you can view us on YouTube at the Israel Brief, and all you have to do is click on the red subscribe button. But let's get to those big stories. And the good news momentum carries on with regards to COVID-19. It was announced by the government that starting today, Israel will allow 3,000 visitors in from countries around the world. This, of course, is dependent on whether or not those countries are allowing their citizens to travel, but Israel is allowing people in a hope and an attempt to revive our travel industry. It has also been announced that next week bars and nightclubs will open, and there has been a lot of discussion, especially in Tel Aviv, about whether or not people who haven't been vaccinated should be excluded. However, provisions will be made to set up fast testing COVID stations outside these venues so that people who aren't vaccinated can come in if they test negative. It has also been announced that countries like the UAE, Morocco, Bahrain, and selected EU countries will start allowing in Israeli visitors who have been vaccinated. So this is welcome news, as we are now well into a year since the start of the global pandemic. In other news, and this is a scandal that is really rocking Israel, and that is the allegations leveled against Emergency Services Chairman and co-founder of Zaka, that is Yehuda Meshi Zahav, somebody who is quite a beloved figure here in Israel, somebody really trusted. Last week, the story broke that there have been at least 6 alleged cases of rape and sexual harassment leveled against Mr. Meshi Zahav. And it was announced that police have questioned members of Zaka who have reportedly been accused of covering up the allegations or the alleged crimes committed by Meshi Zahav in the past. According to Ynet News, it has been made public that Meshi Zahav was initially investigated in 2013 by police who caught wind of allegations of sexual abuse, but that this was dropped by the state prosecutor despite incriminating evidence. So this is a story that really has rocked the foundations of Israel, and we will be keeping you updated as it progresses. Meanwhile, Zahav has handed back his Israel Prize that he received late last year. And our final story takes us to the United Nations, and Israel's envoy to the UN, Gilad Dunn, who incidentally also serves as our ambassador to the United States, has launched an initiative to get the international institution to accept IHRA. IHRA is the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's definition of anti-Semitism and is regarded internationally as the bog standard document by which all kinds of bodies, be they legislative, be they at a government level, a school level, a sports level, and so on, accept the definition of anti-Semitism. Now here, in this definition, it makes clear lines about what is considered anti-Semitic and what is considered anti-Zionist, and that it draws a parallel between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. But we do want to make one thing clear. It does allow for criticism of Israel, because criticism of any country is legitimate. However, where it becomes blurred and up for discussion is when organizations or movements or NGOs debate Israel's right to exist. So Ambassador Dunn is hoping to launch an initiative whereby he gets the United Nations as a body to accept this definition of anti-Semitism, which would obligate all its other organizations like UNICEF, ECOSOC, UNRWA and others to operate according to these parameters. He's also hoping that it will cut back on the incitement against Israel by UN member states. This has become a major problem, and one that the new ambassador to the UN from the United States has said it will be her priority, is the disproportionate focus against the state of Israel. Meanwhile, yesterday, under the auspices of the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations, for the first time in history, got together to discuss holistic ways that we can approach anti-Semitism. This was chaired by the High Representative Miguel Morontinos from Spain, and he was appointed at the behest of Secretary General Antonio Guterres. This is the first time a gathering like this has taken place under the auspices of the UN, and really showed the extreme focus that the UN, or the priority that it has set in addressing anti-Semitism. I have to be honest, I was there as a representative of World Retail. I was extremely proud to be given the opportunity to address the plenary, and quite humbled by the company that was there. People like Erwin Kotler, a former Canadian Member of Parliament who is the Special Envoy on Anti-Semitism, the Envoy on Anti-Semitism from the EU, Katharina Schnurbein, Malcolm Hunline from the Conference of American Presidents, and various other notable speakers. It was a very, very humbling experience. And one thing that was made abundantly clear is the dangers of platforms on social media, and as well as the commitment by the United Nations to highlight these problems and to put the processes in place to fight them. So these are the top stories making headlines today. Don't forget to check out our content on our website at www.layoftheland.online. We're on Facebook at Luttel's site. Join our growing community on YouTube at The Israel Brief, and on Twitter at layoftheland5. So with the Tuesday edition of The Israel Brief, I am slightly exhausted. Rolene Marks yesterday took it out of me. I have to be very honest with you, saying these are your top stories. We'll meet again tomorrow. Until then, I wish you good health and safety, and we'll chat again round about this time tomorrow.